If you'll listen to this story, you'll be able to hear a pretty crazy ending that involves being electrocuted many, many times. Uh, so I hope you take the time to listen to this episode of It Must Be Fiction. My son was a 1 in 1,000 chance of surviving neuroblastoma cancer. And we knew it was a long shot, but God told us to fight the good fight, do every measure we can uh, to to try to keep him alive, and that was the alternative choice. The doctors said we could just take him home on hospice, and arguably that'd be the humane thing to do. And it got to the end of the fight, uh, and he had a couple weeks. So my wife joined me at the hospital. Often we divided and conquered. She'd be at the home, with the kids. I'd be at the hospital. She'd visit as often as she could, sometimes alone, sometimes with the kids. But my mom came and stayed with our kids at our house so that my wife and I could be there for every last moment that we had. Um, and it was such a stressful year leading up to that I'd gained a lot of weight. And my doctor friend, Dr. Dector, uh, shout out to you, buddy. Appreciate you. Uh, he basically called me fat and said you need to lose some weight, and uh, and he told me he was training for this Tough Mudder, which is it's a half marathon, but with tons of obstacles, including running through mud, uh, for, uh, swimming through ice water, uh, trying to do things over a lake, swings, ropes, climbing walls, crazy stuff. Many things of which could get you injured, by the way. um, so the kind of event where you sign a lot of waivers. And so the 4 months prior, I'd been training like crazy, but then we didn't know the timing would align. Obviously, that all of a sudden when it was time for the race, it was the last couple weeks of my son's life, or so the doctors thought. Obviously, my wife and I try to have faith and try to hold on to that faith. Um, and the night before the race, I woke up to the worst sound I think I've ever heard, and it was the wailing of one of our cancer parent friends, just a couple doors down. And she lost her child. She couldn't help it. She was not just crying, she was wailing. It's hard to say how long it lasted, but I'm telling you, it it felt like hours. And whether it was or wasn't, it rang in my head the rest of that night because the doctors were telling us, that it was our turn next to wail. So I didn't sleep. I wake up. And when I say wake up, I got up. I was already awake, but I get up, and my son from cancer treatment lost 70% of his hearing. So he slept through the screaming. He didn't know that one of his cancer friends just died a couple doors down. He didn't even know. And we weren't about to tell him. And I said to my son, I'm like, hey, buddy, I'm just going to skip the race. He knew I was training for it for many months. He helped me train for it with let me push him with the wheelchair all down the halls and all this stuff. And he felt like he was part of this training. He felt like he was part of that process of getting me ready for this big race. And And the race was really close to the hospital. It wasn't far. So like if something bad happened, I could quickly get back to the hospital. But but now I was terrified. I was terrified to leave his side even for a minute. Because what if while I was gone, that you know is the moment that he would die, and then my wife would be there alone with him, and I didn't want to leave my wife. I didn't want to leave him, and I had no sleep, and I felt horribly sick. But he asked me to go, and he said, "Dad, I need you to go. I need you to run for both of us. I want you to go win that race. I want you to still go. You should go. You need to go." So I wasn't going to say no to the kid. So I went. And I had no idea though how I was going to pull this off because I felt so sick. So on my way there, I pull off to a gas station, and I mean, I pound like almost a whole bottle of Pepto-Bismol. Like I was like, and I couldn't even really keep water down, right? So like, I mean, I was like throw up sick. So um, so I had a little water in my stomach and some Pepto, and that's it. No food, nothing for this race. I felt too sick, and so I I meet my doctor friends that were running the race with me. I meet them there. Uh, they didn't realize I had like no sleep. They didn't realize I had nothing in me. I had every reason not to go, but I'll be danged if I didn't just run that race uh, like you couldn't believe. Um, and I I am vertically challenged. I'm not a tall person, and my legs are really short. So um, they you can actually measure the difference. And like if I run a marathon, I technically take about uh, an extra 31% more steps than someone with longer legs to run the same marathon. So when I do a half marathon, which this was a half marathon with obstacles, technically I have to work 31% harder, 31% more steps than everybody else. And uh, yet I kept up. I kept up and was even in the lead a lot of the time. And if nothing else, was side by side with Dr. Decter, and was just running this race. Uh, and you go through every obstacle, and I conquered every obstacle, all of them. Which again, with my height, is challenging. Some of them are really challenging. Got through all of them, and the last obstacle is an army crawl through mud. Um, and if you don't army crawl low enough, um, then there's all these electrical wires hanging, and you'll get an electric shock to your back if you don't army crawl low enough. And at that point, all of a sudden, I wasn't going to win the race because with the group I was with, because they were ahead of me in army crawling underneath these wires. And I don't know what came over me, but I just straight up sprinted, just said, screw it. I'm going through the wires. And we're not talking about a few wires, like we're talking a couple hundred. I don't know how many, but a lot. And I just run through every electrical wire, being electrocuted, which, mind you, for a normal person, they said would slam you to the ground. Like the electrical currency alone would just slam you to the ground. You'd fall. And I just took it, and I just ran right through the wires, and then got past the finish line with a really great time for someone that only had a tiny bit of water and Pepto-Bismol to run the whole race with no sleep the night before. And when you make it through, you get a special bandana and everything else. Um, and uh, I got back to the hospital, and my son was so proud, and he was so proud of his dad, and he's like, you did it. And I'm like, well, we did it, buddy. You trained with me, and I put the bandana on him and took him for a stroll in his wheelchair, and we we log onto the website because they take a bunch of pictures, and right there on the main page of the website was a picture of me, because I was the crazy guy that ran through the electrical wires and it never knocked me down. And I was on the cover. We don't know how many obstacles we're going to face. We don't know all the challenges that are going to hit us. But that day, I overcame every obstacle. I ran the race. And I didn't let the wires get me down. I think life is a lot like that. It's full of unpredictable obstacles. Sometimes you have to run the race on empty with no sleep when you think you can't do it, and be proven wrong. Because I did. I did it. I did this insane hard race. And it didn't matter how many times I was electrocuted. I didn't let those wires knock me down. And we then faced death for my son that next week, but with more confidence and more faith. I remembered back to a special prayer that was given for my son. And accomplishing something as dumb as the Tough Mudder and not letting the wires knock me down reminded me to have faith in the blessing that he would live. And it's a story for another episode. But there was something that happened that very next week that was nothing short of a miracle that allowed him to live when he shouldn't have. We should have been the ones next wailing. And, I haven't done the episode yet, but those that know me, I've lost 3 children. So why did it keep me up all night? Why did the wailing go off over and over the whole night? It was because I wailed that same way. I walked outside of my house and I was in the middle of the street, and I wailed that same way when I lost my first child and when she died. So I recognized that sound, and it brought back the horrific memories. But we can be strong. We can overcome the impossible. Not alone. Friends, family, people you go to church with, neighbors, people you maybe work with. If you're blessed like me to have a spouse like I do, your spouse, your own kids, your parents. There are those that will help get you through, and there are those that will help get you through from the other side. I know that we've had angels help. I know that God's been there. I know that we have had miracles. My faith and testimony of Jesus Christ as my Savior and friend is real. And that strength that we can get from tapping into all that God wants to bless us with to face the impossible obstacles and wires that will knock you down. He can help you do anything. And I leave you with that.